Do I really need to say more? Hey everyone, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic, and welcome back. We are concluding the NFC West 2025 NFL recap, and we're talking about the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. The celebration's over, the draft is literally just around the corner, and now we need to talk about how did they do it? What did they do? Why did we not even give them remotely a single thought that they will be good? That's the beautiful thing about the NFL. We don't know, and quite frankly, when we don't know, we get angry about it. Let's talk about Seattle. So when it comes to videos like this, when you're talking about the Super Bowl champion, it's almost kind of hard to say what went wrong when everything went right. It's kind of hard to find an argument on what they could have done better when they won the whole thing. And the biggest thing you could probably say, in a way, is that you really can't say they got lucky. They kind of dominated the season. And even the losses that they did get weren't really, like, oh, worst performance. It was just, literally sometimes a deflection here, late heroics there. So a lot of the time, the Seattle Seahawks were probably very much like the Rams, one of the most confident teams you probably would literally want to put your mortgage on to succeed. And of course, the biggest question going into the season was Sam Darnold. Because we have seen in the entire league of sports in general, but mainly in football, that 1 year wonder is probably more of 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 times going to happen. And Sam Darnold's success in Minnesota was more the same thing, kind of like what Matt Flynn did in Green Bay when he went to Seattle. But then Seattle drafted this douchebag named Russell Wilson, who probably did nothing anyway. I don't remember much about him. So, I'm sure some people look into Sam Darnold's situation as Seattle was desperate, because at the time, Geno Smith did rejuvenated his career in Seattle. So the thought about God almost kind of like downgrading, but also hoping would, resonate. But then also Seattle let Lockett and DK leave. So basically, your three-headed monster receiving core went down to one. And did any of us really thought that JSN would be this successful? I mean, we all saw, at least I remember, the Rose Bowl against Utah, where literally he single-handedly brought Ohio State. Sorry, wrong OSU. The Buckeyes back to win that game, and kind of made sad how the Utah Utes just blew that. But then, the defense returned, almost kind of like a second version of the Legion of Boom, or at least just a Seattle dominant force, led by a bunch of sadly no-namers, rookies rising, and some free agent acquisition that came from Dallas. Suck it, Micah, Lawrence would say. And now they're Super Bowl champions. What a great story. And I don't want to be that guy saying, well, they can't do it next year. Don't worry about next year. Enjoy this for as long as it can. Because quite frankly, that's all you can do. And everyone will remember the Super Bowl. And I don't care that the Patriots was your opponent. Sucks to suck. Sucks that Bo Nix got hurt. Sucks the Chiefs didn't make it. Sucks the Ravens disappeared. It sucks that every team that everyone basically had money on to go to the playoff, let alone the Super Bowl, didn't win. So, yeah, kind of sucks. But you only play who you play, and Seattle did take care of that. Now, with everything I just said, I personally had a 10-7 season. Because I still felt like San Francisco and the Rams were the two-headed monster in the West. Seattle could have still a win here and there, and for multiple years, they were always like last week of the season trying to get in. I felt like that would have been the same thing. I was very concerned with the receiving threat of Seattle going from 3-1. I was also concerned about Sam Darnold being put in a situation that maybe he was not 100% ready to take that next step after once succeeding on one team. Now has to go to a whole new team, a whole new thing again. I just felt like that maybe we needed to let our expectations a little bit. And if for whatever reason Seattle stumbled again like they did the years before, 8-9 was another record. I was considering that maybe they weren't ready yet, but I still believe that Sam Darnold, like Baker Mayfield, like Jared Goff, with their other team, they finally would have got it. And they finally would have cemented themselves as a potential future for at least 5 to 6 years down the line. Never thought I'd be a Super Bowl champion, but hey, miracles do happen. But then 14-3 was your guys' record. You guys literally said no. You literally went no doubt this year. Even though some of your losses were heartbreakers, you guys literally went into this season with a mindset of no doubt. We will make the playoffs, win the division, get the #1 seed. I think you guys weren't thinking that high, but I was impressed. You guys literally said no doubt, #1 seed, suck at everyone else. But 14-3, dominant performance, took care of the Rams, and basically anyone that really came in your way, either you lost to them and you redeemed yourself, or you just, said, darn, we got one bounce here and there that didn't go our way. And the one game that bounced your way, you can make the argument, is your best game. And the best game really cemented potentially a new rivalry potentially forming in the NFC West. This time it's Week 16 versus the Los Angeles Rams. In overtime, 38-37. This was a wonderful game between these two teams, and we were so blessed that the Rams and Seattle actually said, you know what, that was so good, let's have another competitive matchup in the playoffs for a chance for a Super Bowl trip. Let's just do that. Funny enough, Seattle actually had to play both their division foes in the playoffs, San Francisco and the Rams. Talk about literally saying you can't beat the same team 3 times, or in the playoffs, it's a different stat. And Seattle's like, we're still going to beat them twice. We're still going to make that cement itself. So in that regard, especially when the first matchup was a 21-19, it kind of looked a little sloppy. This one was just like offense galore, defense just get one stop. This was a great game, and this is why I felt like Sam Darnold, I know it was late in the year, he kind of like turned the corner to be like, okay, we can rely on him a little bit more. He can help us a little bit more, because Matthew Stafford was on an MVP campaign, and in this game, he still showed why he was MVP. But this was a game that went back and forth, the scoreboard. But the thing that makes me very concerned in that, that happened, was that, where is it? Was in the fourth quarter when the Rams were up 30-14. Recently acquisition from the trade, Rashid Shaheed had a punt return touchdown. Now, granted, punt returns happen in the NFL, but this was an acquisition that the Saints let go, and Seattle took, who they just signed back because obvious reasons. You want a talented player. Remind me of the days of Percy Harvin, minus the migraines, and that helped, at least get the game within close. But like I said, this game fared very much like it was Rams to take. Rams were going to take the division, and Rams are going to probably sell themselves into a Super Bowl berth. But the tenacity, the comebackery, that's a new word I make of the comebackery of Seattle. This one really, to me, showed that Seattle was playing with a sense of, they took down the Rams, they played hard. I think it made even Seattle fans feel like this is possible. And I feel like that's what the game showed. The possibility of Seattle. Because I think a lot of us felt, it was Rams and Seattle's season. It was going to come down to those two teams. And good thing we got the NFC Championship game to kind of cement that claim. Now, your worst game. Now, it's kind of hard to find your worst game. Because one, we played my factor of the first 4 games don't matter. And with the NFL currently discussion about an 18-game season and preseasons are getting smaller and smaller, it's going to make those first 4 games of the regular season, that first month, be more of a, we don't know who we are yet. So they only had 3 losses. And one of the losses was in week 1, and then, of course, against the Rams. But to be considered the worst game, we had to remove the first game. And what is the worst game? You'd probably say maybe at the Rams. I'm going to say the worst game was because they more than likely probably should have won. And it was the worst game because they showed every possible doubt they could. And that is Week 5 versus Tampa Bay. This was a game that could have been someone else's best game. We'll discuss that in the future. But this was a game that showed two quarterbacks. It was a retrofit game. It had all the bells and whistles. Ohio State was sailing as both their star receivers, showcasing why they're one of the top tier in their class and why Ohio State is wide receiver U. Seriously. That's an argument that's not even contested. And it was a high-scoring affair, but the two big factors why it's the worst game is because there were times where Seattle was matching Tampa and Tampa was matching Seattle, but there were two crucial turnovers, which sometimes emphasized turnover battle. One was a fumble on a play they did with Malone. They tried to do a strategic play. It backfired, option, whatever, and I think that led 2 points for Tampa. But then the big thing was, with Baker driving down the field and scoring, and they felt like they had plenty of time for Sam Darold to do one more heroic. And then by the sheer shoulder pad helmet of a defensive lineman, doink, and then gets intercepted by Levante David. It's the worst game, not because of performance, the worst game because it literally was two kind of boneheaded things that happened, one by choice, one by circumstances, and that cost Seattle the game. It's the worst game because you guys played so well that I know there's no ceremonial victories, when you lose, but I think some Seattle fan thinking, man, this offense is humming with Sam Darold. Yes, a doink here and a weird call for an option play with a backup quarterback rookie, but other than that, it was their best game. Now the defense didn't really show that great. I'm going to give it 35 points. I think makes your defensive corner go, oh boy, we got to fix that. But it was the worst game because of circumstances. You guys played great, but still lost. It's kind of like that. I think sometimes playing great and then losing is more painful than playing badly and losing. And Seattle, this was the case of, you guys played great. Doink, doink. Sorry. So, now we're done with the season. Now, when it comes to your MVP, I had two choices. And my choice might make some Seattle fans going, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. Which I get that lots of times. But thanks for watching. I'm giving it to Sam Darold. Not because he's the quarterback. I know there's some player be like, oh, you always give it to the quarterback. What about JSN? I was considering JSN. But I can't help but feel like as great as he was this year, I can't think of it as that Sam Darold did some heroics that did not involve JSN to help Seattle. Sam Darold had to orchestrate that offense. Something that I can think that maybe Geno Smith wouldn't have done without Lockett and DK in the offense. I feel like Sam Darold had less resources in Seattle than he did in Minnesota with Addison and, of course, Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. So I kind of felt like Sam Darold had a little bit less than green, but he still made lemonade with it. And boy, he made JSN thrive. But Sam Darold had moments and did some plays that were not to JSN, that were not to, great scheming. So, and plus, he had a lot of big question marks coming in, wondering, can he be the same Sam Darold he was in Minnesota? So, even though I know I picked Walker to be the MVP for the Super Bowl when it happened, because I said no way Darnold's going to be the quarterback, it's going to be MVP. I just felt like it was more Walker, maybe JSN, or even maybe a defensive player to do it. But to me, if Sam Darnold's, heroics here and there couldn't make JSN thrive or make the rest of the team players thrive, like Barnes and others, then maybe it was Sam Darnold more or understanding the offense for his first time with a new team again, and may help JSN. Now, next year, of course, we'll see if that continues, but for right now, Sam Darnold orchestrating the offense was just enough, and then some, to make Seattle Super Bowl champs. Now, when it comes to the draft, let's go back. I was keeping this. Great for Seattle. You won the Super Bowl. You get an A+, 100%. Small notes here and there, but you won the Super Bowl. What grade can I give less than an A+? Now to the draft. I always find this weird when teams that win the Super Bowl and they get and what they're going to do with their first round draft pick. Sometimes I consider they will trade it away to get more capital for depth in the future. Seattle did lose some key players, including their MVP to Kansas City. You start kind of nitpicking a little bit. You may be looking for depth, maybe you're looking for, potential next heir. Darnold secure, receiver secured. So I think it comes down to best player available, or you're looking for capital, looking for more picks. Go from 7 to maybe 9, maybe even go to up to 10. Get a couple of second round players, third round players just to, prepare for the 5-6 years into the future. But the biggest thing I kept thinking is running backs. I mean, I know they gave rid of the MVP and their running back. Remember, Zach Charbonnet got injured, so Walker took a lot of the carries. He's going to come back. But I feel like what makes Seattle dangerous was also that 1-2 punch. So I'm thinking maybe Seattle needs to do the 1-2 punch again. So if they don't trade out, which I'm honestly leaning toward they'll trade out of the first round to get potentially more capital. Not that they need it, but I just feel like maybe they'll more likely do it because I feel like there'll be some teams that want to get back into the first round before the first night. So, but if they don't, because I don't do trade on this channel, with the 32nd overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks will select, and this is because I think he will fall. Now, will he fall up to 32? I don't think so, but maybe if he falls, Jeremiah Love, running back Notre Dame, if he falls, a lot of teams that needed running backs like the Saints and the Chiefs address that need. Now, there are some teams out there, I can't help but feel like Dallas would be stupid enough to do it, because that's Jerry Jones will do. They need to focus on defense, but they go running back. Jeremiah Love goes to Dallas, just feels like that's a Jerry Jones move. And then other teams here and there, I said Denver is before Seattle, and they might get him to, something like that. But if somehow he falls, Seattle will be the lowest I think he'll go. I think Jeremiah Love. But if he doesn't, I was looking my research on who's the other running back to look into. And there was another running back from Notre Dame who was ranked as the number 2 running back from Notre Dame. So I'm getting like a Ronnie Brown and Carnell, Cadillac Williams, Auburn moment here of 2 running backs that are the top tier running backs from the same school. 1-2 punch. So if Jeremiah Love is not there, but they still want a running back, then with the 32nd overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks will select Darian Price, running back, Notre Dame. Frame is roughly similar. He's a little bit lighter, but a little bit shorter. Love is 6 foot. Price is 5'11". One is 215. One is 205. But if Seattle really wants to find another 1-2 punch with Zach, running back would be the way to go. So that's what I would consider. But then, if they decide not to, because, there's still good quality running back thing, yeah, and Walker wasn't a top-tier running back when he was drafted. He was like a 3rd, 4th round pick out of Michigan State, something like that. He wasn't first-round pick, Greg. I remember that. Then maybe, they try to find an experiment, like what the Bucs did with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka after they won the Super Bowl. They try to find a replacement for their heir apparent, and I guess for the Seahawks, DeMarcus Lawrence is their aging wonder veteran they get in. So for a player that's kind of, needs some twinking and doesn't have to be rushed into it, but a good rotation, with the 32nd overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks could select Keldrick Falk, defensive end Auburn, if he happens to fall, or some other defensive line edge they want to rotate. I mean, they did lose some players on the pass rush department to free agency, and Lawrence is a little bit older veteran. Maybe you want to find like something you can experiment with. Someone has high potential, but doesn't be thrust in right away since you guys won the Super Bowl. And I feel like of the rotation, he'll get his feet wet and get acclimated. And who knows, maybe a 2nd or 3rd year, he gets himself more starting gigs. That's what I feel like with Seattle. And that's the Seattle Seahawks. Whew. So now we're done with the NFC West. Now we got to pick the next division, and we're going to go to a division that I've just been saying it's definitely next because my team's in it, and I really want to get it resolved and done with quickly. So, we're going to go to the NFC South, and we're going to talk about first from the NFC South. It's not going to be the team you think I'm talking about, but the team that I feel like is quietly dangerous, and the question is, how dangerous can they be? But they are, like, very much in the red and capital, so we'll see. And that will be the New Orleans Saints of New Orleans, and see, can the Aints return back to greats? Or is NFC South just going to be like it always is? Who knows? But until next time, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you so very much for watching.